And this is awesome. This is a real conversation. And shops listening to this, like these are the things that keep us up at night. Is
before we jump in though, 4 incredible sponsors. You know their names, and if you guess the first one correct, send me an email, bruce@printavo.com. I'm going to send you something, a little something. All right, so here we go. First one, Supacolor.
You didn't let me pick.
Oh, oops. Wait, did you pick someone else?
No, I was actually going to pick Supacolor at the same time.
Let's go. Supacolor shared something. And the reason why I picked them first is because they shared something really exciting, a whole new website refresh that makes ordering transfers insanely quick, like insane. So it's still kind of beta, but I'm teasing it. And we got to get Run back on the show so he could talk about it a bit more. But Supacolor is the world's best heat transfer. It's made for screen printers by screen printers, and they understand the pressures and expectations of running a business like that. And so they pride themselves in being super fast, super easy, and having super support. I think that's such a big piece of a company, is a great team to be able to help when things do go wrong. So mention Printavo15, write that in the promo code box, and that gets you 15% off your order.
Bruce, have you heard of Multicraft_Daddy? If you need ink supplies or a daddy, Multicraft Screen Printing and Digital Supplies for over 50 years has been providing you with top brands at competitive prices. If you mention the Printavo pod, you'll receive an extra 10% off your first order. Dave Eggers and the Multicraft team, they give away free supplies on every show that we do. So if you DM Dave, that's Multicraft_Daddy, and let him know that you heard this episode and you'd like to enter in to get free stuff. It could be PMI tape, it could be emulsion, it could be a whole lot of things, whatever Dave's coming up with. Go ahead and shoot him a message right now. We appreciate Multicraft and everything they do for us. So thanks so much, Multicraft.
Easy way. If you're spending hours cleaning screens, that is a thing of the past with EasyWay's screen printing and screen cleaning chemicals. Their innovative formulas are designed to work quickly and effectively, so you spend less time cleaning and more time creating. Plus, EasyWay is passionate about empowering printers of all skill levels. They actually do have an awesome team. They're there to help. Honestly, they've got a ton of helpful resources and expert advice to help you succeed in screen printing.
Alex was just in Guatemala. Pretty cool. Selling chemicals and reclaim stuff down there. It's kind of nuts.
Wow.
An international company, if you will. Speaking of an international company, if you need a solution to improve efficiency and reduce costs in your art department, you need to hit up GraphicSource. GraphicSource offers industry-leading outsource options for truly becoming a part of your team. They plug and play with Printavo and other shop management softwares. And when it comes to SEPs, mocks, creative art, order management, embroidery, digitizing, back office, and customer service, there's no better company in our industry to work with. They have over 30 years in the game. They really know and understand shop needs and have a proven track record of success. You can hit them up, graphicsource.com. Use the coupon code PrintavoPod24. You'll get 50% off your first vector, SEP, or embroidery order. We have 5 GraphXers on our team. They are incredible. They are a staple in our business. We would not be anywhere without them. So thank you so much, GraphicSource. Please hit them up if you need help in your art department. All right.
Your office is like a mad science lab.
You know, you move into like a new building, right? Like Steven, you just went through this. And it's like, I still don't feel like we have enough space. I don't know where to put shit. And so, yeah, I've got like all my old office stuff still sitting in my office.
Is that Black Label?
Yeah, it was like gifts for moving in.
Well, what's the new facility like?
It's nice. So it has like a 2,500 square foot mezzanine. And the problem is that we need that space for like manufacturing. And like, it was just when we bought it, it was a great deal, seller financing. And it just made sense. But yeah, kind of like didn't realize we would need more so fast,
So what you're saying is, when did you move into this place?
It was like,
I thought it was recent.
It was like 8 months ago.
And you're already out of space?
Well, yeah. So we had a rock press. Did I tell you this last time? We had a rock press that we bought in 2020, like at the trade show. Thought it would fit in our other building, and it just didn't fit. And so, so it's just been sitting in storage. So we finally got that out and then realized like, oh shit, like this thing's like 22 foot in diameter. So, we knew that going into it, but we thought we were supposed to move like quite a few times and then it just didn't work out. And so it was like, okay, like once we got that installed, got a Sprint 2000 in there, it's like your space is limited pretty quick,
So what was the footprint before, and then what's your footprint now?
So it's like we were in 3 retail spaces. Each of them were like 1,200 square feet, and so like
Wow.
we
But it's
had a
connected though,
Diamondback.
right?
It's connected through like a lobby, but yeah, we went from like that
A bit of
to
a corn
this is,
maze,
like,
if you will.
10,000. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So Marilyn, so Hunter, we wanted to have you on just to like, I don't know, talk through how the
It
last
was a fun
year has
episode
gone.
last time.
We riffed on a bunch of different things, whether it was DTF, moving, I mean, all these different things. Your business is growing like a weed, technology.
No,
How are
it's
you
been
doing?
good. I think like obviously we didn't reach the goals we wanted to reach last year. We came really close, but I think with the move and everything that we knew that would be kind of a hiccup for us. But no, I mean we finally
What was
got
the
away
goals?
we wanted to be at 5 million and surpass it. We didn't quite reach it. We were super close, but just there was a lot of things didn't pan out the way we thought, and this year we'll definitely be there. So we're still kind of growing at like 30 to 40% year over year now. We had that weird trajectory where like at the beginning of the company, we were like growing really fast, really fast, really fast, and then like we're starting to realize like start to stable out a little bit, and then we're trying to like I think next year too. Like we have a lot of really good things in the pipeline, like Shirt Desk, and that's a whole nother thing. But just trying to find that like new piece of momentum for us, I think, and like that's the next goal.
So like Hunter, there's a saying in like when you're early, it's like move fast and break things.
Mm-hmm.
And your growth can be exponential at that point. You're figuring it out as you go, flying by the seat of your pants. Are your goals now revenue based, organizational based, profit based? Like running a $4 to $7 million company is no small task.
Yeah.
Right. Like what are the things that you think about now as your goals now that you've kind of gotten to 30,000 feet?
I think our goals like they're so sporadic, right? Like because we seller finance this building under a 3-year balloon, right? Like we have to go to a bank in 2 years and get financing for it. And so like we have to increase our EBITDA to show the bank that we can afford it because the company's 6 years old, right? So there's like a lot of moving parts. But I think like for us, it's like, okay, if we can get to a net profit of 10, 12%, right? And we can be there, like we should be able to be there no matter the revenue. And that's like still our goal. I mean, 15 was like our big goal, but we're always like focused on the net profit. I think if anything, like our net profit should increase through larger volume with the point that we're at because we're very labor heavy and like we did that on purpose as we scaled because there were so many moving parts, right? Like I told you guys before, like it's just like we're doing way too much. I think our goal just like changes sporadically, but I think, we've kind of shifted more to departmentalized goals. Overall company goal is still to hit that 5 million, of course. Like that's like, target number one.
What do you mean by labor heavy? Like, is that as a percentage spend of your expenses is higher than you'd want it to be, or you've hired multiple roles, so you don't have good duplication?
I don't think that is too much. I think, since we started the company, right, like minimum wage in Maryland has gone from, I believe it was like either $9.25 or $10.10 when we started 5 years ago to $15 an hour. So we've had a pretty huge jump in labor, minimum wage and labor costs, right? And so like now, you can't really hire people for less than, once that minimum wage rises, so does that base starting pay. And so like that's definitely not helped. But no, we've been labor heavy from the very beginning, just because of the multiple different things. But to answer your question, I think it's just like we have a lot of people, probably too many people. I would say yes. In turn, it's probably higher than it should be cost wise, but I'm not sure. We have this weird problem, right? Where like Jeff from Stampinator was just in the other day. We were talking about this too. It's like everybody says you need less people because we have like roughly on any given day there could be 22 people in here, right? Like 20 being full time. Like it just depends. And Jeff comes in and like we're talking and he's like, dude, you need less people. And like everybody comes in and says that. And I'm like, well, then why are we giving people that are here more tasks? Like we continue to give the people that are here more tasks. It's just a weird problem to have, right? Because it's like every person in here plays a critical role in the operations, right? And meeting deadlines and stuff. So we trying to figure that problem out has been a weird one. And it's like, I don't know. That's why I say that labor is definitely like, we have a higher labor than I would say another person at our revenue.
If you look at a typical print shop, right, versus a shop that's trying to go through rapid expansion, you always have to front load labor when you're trying to grow quickly. What I mean by that is you have to hire a salesperson and it's going to take them a year to actually start to really move, right? You have to hire marketing people, put them in place, and it might take 3 to 4 months before they actually start to pull their weight. And so I read this like a head count or a ratio of revenue per employee. Bruce, have you ever heard this before? Like
yeah,
really strong companies can have like 300K per employee. You take your total revenue, divide it by the amount of total people you have, and that's your like head count ratio. And what you really want to try to do is build economies of scale so that if one employee is able to get 2x, you want 1.5 employees to get like 5x, if that makes sense. So you want to continually increase that ratio. Am I saying that right, Bruce? Right? Isn't that how tech looks at it?
It's a good rough measurement to say, am I overspending on people or not?
Yeah. But Hunter, when you think of being labor heavy, are you labor heavy in the sales, marketing, technology? Like that's how we are at Campus Ink. That's our biggest expense. How is it for you guys?
It's flip-flopped, I'd say. I'd say it probably would benefit from being reversed, right? Like we're more heavy in the production side of things. And like I said, I think it's because we're doing so many different things, right? Like compared to like your standard shop that you go in and they're, just doing screen printing and embroidery and maybe they sub everything else. And we're doing a lot of that stuff in-house, right? So it's like you need somebody to run all these machines and they need to do that full time, right? And it's like,
do you feel like, and this is awesome. This is a real conversation, and shops listening to this, like these are the things that keep us up at night is, do we go wide or do we go deep, right? Like, do we dig 20, 10-foot holes or 10, 40-foot holes, right? Have you thought, and I think for listeners, you do on-demand decoration, right? You're running e-commerce, you're still bulk printing, merch stores, you're working on shirt desks. There's all these different things that you're doing. Have you ever thought about narrowing your scope and just like literally cutting pieces of the business off that are sort of diluting you?
Yeah. I mean, like I talk about this all the time, like with our team, it's like when I sat down for our end of year meeting last year or this year for last year, I was like, look, like moving forward, we've got to find a niche. Like we've got to figure out like, what is this thing we're going to be really good at? And like, what are we going to, like, we need to eliminate everything else. So I think like we're Shirt Desk is that goal, right? It's like, how can we get to that point to where that's crushing the revenue at Maryland Printhouse and then can kind of like take over that in a way. And like, we can retain the same staff, but I'd love to do both. It's just, I think you just have to have really good people, right? Like, I mean, we will turn over people if we don't think they're a good fit and we'll find like good people that are motivated and have the same and share the same goals. And I think that sounds like way easier said than done. But it's really true. Like you need to have like rock stars in each position from the person, the operations manager, all the way down to, screen cleaning, like, right. Like it could be anything. At every position, they need to they need to want to be there every day. And I think a lot of times what happens is as shops scale, you have these 2, 3, 4, bad apples that are just like the owner might not be as involved as they need to be or whatever. And it's like, once you're able to figure out who these bad apples are and you remove them and you replace them with good ones, it just changes the entire dynamic of the business, right? And it's like, one thing that we've learned over the last probably year and a half is like, we've got to get rid of those people that aren't fitting in or aren't putting in the work a lot sooner, because they in turn like affect the entire organization. Like if it's somebody in production, right? And like these guys are working their ass off doing overtime like nonstop, and you've got this one dude that's in there it's not carrying his weight. Like that pisses everybody off, right? And it's like people that give a fuck like want everybody else to as well, right? So it's like, I don't know. I feel like that's played a massive part. I've started to find myself like dealing with HR stuff a lot more in recent, like last year, than I've ever wanted to, and I hate it.
Welcome to the size where, dude, the problem with that though is it never stops from here. It only grows until you can bring on someone.
Yeah, I'm sure you still deal with it. Yeah.
Steven?
I do not. So we hired, so I think Hunter, I align with you there. When you find those key people, the impact they make is exponential. I've made a couple with our investment. We've been able to afford incredible talent. A couple of them are, having a CTO, having a CFO. And when I hired our CFO, he assumed the role of HR, and I don't own it anymore. And it takes me emotionally out of it. And now it's like,
our CFO is doing HR as well for a little while.
Yeah, he runs the review cycles. He runs raises. He runs feedback, complaints, performance reviews, everything. And I think when the owner is way too involved in HR, it doesn't become a logical decision. It becomes an emotional decision.
It's just draining.
I'm tired of this decision.
It's just emotionally draining, right? Like, because you want people to not do dumb shit, but you also want people to care a lot about the same things that you care about, right? And that's just the nature of running a business. And so the problem is it's really problematic when like that they also share that same care but are still doing dumb shit, like, or causing problems, right? It's like that's when it gets like squirrely, because it's like they're really good workers, they care a lot, but they just cannot get out of their own way.
Hunter, I think when you're scaling a company to where you're at, it's so critical to have 3 or 4 people that are super close to you in the business, that are your right hand, left hand. Who are those people for you? Can you talk about the DNA of your small circle?
Yeah. So when I started the company, I had started Creators Label in college. I told you guys that story. My partner there left, but then my cousin, my first cousin, actually is our VP of Sales, Business Development, and so he does a lot of our managing inside salespeople, attending events, doing all of that stuff. So he's a partner in the business, and then a guy I played soccer with my whole life. His name is Bergie. He's always worked super hard. He just happened to be a DGen in college like I was, and wanted to work really hard. And like, he followed my path kind of and started screen printing with me. And we brought him in to be our screen printing operations manager when we first started as well. So then I could focus on growing the business, right, and building it, and they could take over the sales burden and the production burden. And so that was like a really, really big, important step, I would say. Next to getting software to manage orders, like those two things, I think. Oh, you still there? So reconnecting. I think those two things have allowed us to be where we're at today. Is like getting those two guys, and so those two guys I'm really close with. We kind of keep everything together for the most part, and we lived together for years. When I bought my first house, I brought those guys in for the first. Andrew wasn't with us, but Bergie we all lived together for the last like 2-3 years. I had kids, right? They're starting to move out and stuff. He had a kid. And so he moved out. But, living together and stuff, like I did that for like 6 years where like I moved my friends into my house just to cover the overhead and stuff. And,
Wow.
but, that gets draining too. That's especially draining, especially if there's like a disagreement. But, we've been really good about it. Like I've been very, very, I think from doing it for so long, I've gotten really good at just like leaving work at work. And, when we're at the house, like I don't entertain any type of work conversations unless it's like absolutely like we need to talk about this. So yeah, I think that's the DNA. I mean, we did this together from the start. I mean, Berg, you printed like 200,000 impressions on a manual in like the first 2 years by himself.
Oh, 2 years.
2 years.
Dude, is he just jacked or what?
Dude, he was. Yeah.
Forearms are just torqued. Bruce, you talk about making key critical hires. And what I've learned from Bruce is you go out and find them and they tell you what to do a little bit. Bruce, when you made those hires in your business, did you make them too late, too early? Did you underpay, overpay? What mistakes did you make? Talk to us about when Printavo really started to rock and who the key people were in that formula.
Is there an option D, all of the above? I'd like to select all, please. Yeah, definitely too late. Definitely underpaid. But again, the pay thing's tricky because you're trying to do as much as you can at that time. I do like equity options though for some key members. It's tricky though because if you do it for some key, that will get out to the rest of the team. And how do you incentivize for certain people and not for others? If you want to do that, or for all as a whole. But I do think having some feeling of ownership is nice, and that maybe could be phantom equity too, which is a lot easier. But I think, I don't know, my mistake was just too late. I almost thought that some of the managers should be fleshed out by like 3-4 million. And granted, software is different with margins and so on than a shop. But I found at that point, I was doing way too much in the weeds than I should have been doing. Like I was getting way too deep and then coming back up and then way too deep. And I wasn't able, like, and part of it, I would say 60% was my fault of not being able to hand off stuff correctly. And then 40% was getting the right people that, could handle some of the bigger problems and issues and people stuff and all that.
It's funny that you say, say that because I was talking to someone the other day and I said, my number one goal at Campus Inc. right now is to deliver the vision, the strategy, and get out of the way. Like when I am in the way, I slow things down because I want to have the last.
Like I don't even. It's tough.
And so it's like I literally left Slack channels. I was like, I started these Slack channels years ago. I'm like, nope, I don't want to see it. Like I'm just going to mute this, kick myself out of here, delete myself from meetings because when I'm involved, everyone's a little more on edge. Everything takes a little bit longer. I'm always going to have my last word. And I just have to learn to like loosen my grip a little bit. And at that point is when the business really started to professionalize. I'm curious, Hunter, on a day-to-day basis, what do you spend your time doing right now?
Yeah, it's a multitude.
Besides cleaning your office.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't happen as you can see, but so for the first time we hired an operations manager, right? Last year, actually this year. So earlier this year. And it's a tough thing, because like you put them through, like for us, we went through like 8-9 weeks of training, like really detailed, like just I'm all hands off.
Didn't work out or what?
He's still with us. And he does a good job.
Okay,
it's just really hard to like bring somebody new in to a young company and say, here's your boss. Like, it's not me anymore. It's not Bergie. It's this guy. And you need to like do what he says. And here's what his plan is, right? Like, it's like, I help work with him to build a plan of what we're going to do. Now, has there been challenges with that? Sure. Like, I mean, it's not been easy. And finding the right person for that is definitely tough. But you have to be like I tell a lot of our, like Andrew Wright, like love him to death, but he struggled a lot and maybe still a little bit, a lot less now with that, what you were saying, like being too involved with making the decisions, doing that stuff. And you have to do it this way and yada, yada. And like, so I've always had to be that big proponent of like, listen, like you have to stop doing that. You have to let people fail. You have to let them figure out solutions to their failures, because that's why we're here, right? Like we had to do that, and that made us who we are and made us better, right? And, I think that is like, I've never really been that way, to where like at the beginning, maybe like the first year or two, because I just wanted to make sure that we had the momentum to get to where we needed to be. And I think that requires, when you have a small team, like somebody to be the man, and like, just like, we're going to be here all the time. We're going to, get shit done. But like, and somebody has to lead that energy. Right. But I think like, go ahead.
No, you finish.
No, I just think that I've seen that firsthand in our business, and it can be such a roadblock for your team members, and it really frustrates them, I think, more than frustrated. It helps. Yeah, it's not good.
What was your day look like yesterday?
So yesterday finished at 4 this morning. So it was a long one. But yeah, I was dealing with overseas manufacturers all night last night. But so yesterday we had a rough, I was at the beach until Tuesday. We had a really rough Tuesday when I wasn't here, the last day, and in screen printing. One of our guys was out, and it just was a nightmare. I'm not going to go into the details, but when I got back yesterday, I was figuring out like screen inventory. I was really involved in the production yesterday just because of the headaches that we went through on Tuesday. And sometimes like, I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit, but sometimes I think I find myself like, when it's a really big problem, like I feel like I can't let this one slip, or else it's going to put us in a really, really bad spot. And so you have to, I think, kind of gauge like your issues, and then decide when it's like, okay, I need to step up here and do something, or else nothing's going to get done. Nothing's going to get solved, and it needs to be solved. So I was cleaning screens. I cleaned like 10, 12 screens yesterday because we were like kind of being stuck in our way about using statics. We use Sherlocks, and I was like, we don't have a choice. We had to burn like, I don't know, we had like 60 screen day yesterday, and like, we can't like be beggars can't be choosers. We need screens, and as long as we don't sacrifice, like, I don't know. It's just like, just was doing a lot of like resolving minor or major production issues. But then today will be like, I have meetings with like some high potential clients, and still dealing with China on some custom stuff, and doing, whatever. I mean, some of the days, like when we ventured into, this is a good topic, our own DTF journey, getting rid of all domestic suppliers, and utilizing all overseas. And so going through that process was a big challenge. I spent a lot of hours getting all of that stuff figured out, but now that we have it figured out, it's been a really good thing. But yeah,
I mean, I know you said you didn't want to talk on it, but I also am very curious as to how you ended up burning or cleaning up screens. But
well, like we use Sherlock screens and frames, right? And we really like that we have the same tensions, and like we have a lot of like, like every shop, you have like this is how we do things, and we from our old shop, we had a bunch of statics that were just sitting there, just with whether they had emulsion on them or whatever, and we were choosing not to use them because we got stuck in our way in using statics, and like we need screens right now. And so it's like, I don't care. I had to just bite the bullet 2 weeks ago. I talked to them and I was like, we need to get these things into the rotation, and nobody wanted to do it. And it's like, we got to do it. We don't have a choice.
So you're just like, I'm forcing it through.
Yeah. Like it's
Hurricane. That's Steven? Hurricane Hunter. That's Hurricane Hunter. I'm passing the torch.
That's what I
I'm
was
passing
saying.
the torch.
It's like if I don't do that, right, we're gonna run into the same issue again tomorrow. And it's like, why do we keep living in this cycle? I just sometimes don't get that.
I was talking to my business partner, Jed, who's twice my age.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll say things like, why don't we just burn all the screens for the week, the first day on Monday, and then we'll be set for the week. Like, why are we not batching stuff? Why aren't we working smarter, not harder? And I told him, I said, Jed, do they know how to use a calendar? And he's like, well, I was like, they don't know how to use a spreadsheet, let alone a calendar. And I'm asking them to think 3 days in advance. And so I said, like, stop saying those things. We need to peel back the onion and say, no, this is an education problem. This is a training problem. This is a resource problem. This is a leadership problem. They don't know how to use a calendar. That's the problem here. They can't, and so sometimes when I get in my head about staff and I'm like, why aren't you figuring it out? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? I always think, like, is it because they're neglecting to know, they know the rules and they neglect to follow them? Or are they trying to follow the rules and structure, but there isn't much to follow, so they're just doing the best they can with the tools they have? And so sometimes I'm like,
yeah,
maybe it's us, because when I go into, I was just talking about like Amazon delivery service and their DSV model, they have 100-page manual on how Amazon delivery works and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, if we worked with the level of scrutiny to a Starbucks or a Jimmy John's or an Amazon or something like that, I bet you and I wouldn't be Hurricane Steven and Hurricane Hunter. And I don't know. That's just a hot take. How does that make you feel when I say it?
I mean, I think it's definitely true, but I think, like, I'm sure that Amazon goes through this, and I know that they do, and I'm sure that many large organizations do, that sometimes shit hits the fan, right? And like, shit isn't in the manual, but I'm sure they update it, right? Like, I'm sure that they update it once that happens. But there's things, I think, that just can take place that you can't prepare for. And I think that there has to be leadership there, right? Like, and I think that no matter what, you can have the manual, but somebody has to do the training. Somebody has to be the leader there, right?
So is what you're saying, I call this like the crying baby, is like, there's a crying baby in the room, who's going to carry the crying baby? And a lot of times the owner just picks up the crying baby and is like, I'll freaking do it. I wonder what would happen if you said, you guys figure it out, I'm leaving.
Well, I've done it many times. It's just,
and what happens?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying. I mean, it gets resolved, right? Eventually. It's just, how long does it take to resolve a problem when it can be resolved that day? And it's like what I was saying earlier is, like, as the owner, sometimes you have to make a decision on whether to get involved in an issue or not, right? And it's like, at what point do you make that decision to get involved? How bad do you let it get before you step in and are like, something has to be done here?
Yeah, I think for me, I look at what the reversibility and the impact of the situation. Like, is this going to impact a customer that's going to threaten the business or jeopardize our brand? Is this going to be is this internal problem going to get external? And I think the second it starts to get external is where I want to step in, because I'm like, this is where we could lose a customer.
What about, I'm not worried about customers like as much. Obviously, that's really important. But what about staff? Like, I think it's like the burden it puts on staff, right? Because in a time where they're super, like, out of control, they're anxious, they're not getting shit done, they know they're fucked. Like, and you don't have, your leadership is also feeling the same way, and they're not performing. Like, who's going to be the man? Like, somebody has to come in and resolve the issue at some point, right? I mean, I'm not doing anything that's going to completely fix the problem, right? I'm just, making them do things that they're saying they didn't want to do 2 weeks ago because I saw the writing on the wall.
Right.
But, like, at what point do you step in? You have to. Yeah, because if you don't, like, your staff is going to be miserable. Like, it's going to create turmoil in all of production at that point. And then it's like, I don't want to deal with HR issues, right? So it's like, I still am that guy, you know? So it's like, at what point
It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Lord of the Flies. They're going to turn on each other.
You
I
gotta
don't know.
step in at some point.
So I'll Bruce knows this, but I'm spending less and less time in our production facility. Year to date, probably no more than 15 full days in 6 months.
Nice.
And I've done that with intention because, one, I got rid of my office in there. Nice. They needed it for space. But two, I needed to create space for someone else to step up and say, all right, we're all coming in early tomorrow. Yeah. Steven's not here. We're all coming in early hey, we're working Saturday because we didn't get this done and it's on us. And, Steven's going to come back next week and he's expecting it to be done. So who can work overtime on Saturday? And what started to happen is, Mila and Chad, who they've filled that void. And then they tell me after the fact, hey, we weren't able to get this done. We came in on Saturday, just so you know, you're going to see a little OT on there, but I got it. I called on everyone and we came in early and we got it done. And I think that's where, before, I would try to know the problem ahead of time. I would get in their ass about it and say, like, how is this going to be done? And by leaving them a little bit, and it kind of feels like I had to get rid of my guilt and shame. That was my guilt and shame.
That's the problem I have as well.
They're adults and they're humans and they're going to figure it out. And if it burns down, then they'll call me. And it's been a therapeutic experience.
No, I would benefit from that a lot. I talk about it a lot. It's the guilt for me. Like, it's like, I don't want people thinking that, like, I'm not here, I'm not doing shit, but it would benefit me a lot. Like, and I'm aware of that. Like, I've worked remote often, like, and, I think but productivity is way increased, right? Like, but man,
Bruce, do you have,
yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce. Did you suffer from guilt and shame of not getting in the weeds?
I think I suffered from it in a way where if I wasn't overworking, I felt like I was not doing enough,
contributing,
or like I'm supposed to be. You're supposed to be doing that. And maybe this goes back to what we were talking about before, which is an ego thing of, as the owner, you're supposed to be working X amount more hours and doing more than everybody else and carrying it on your shoulders and just doing it and just stepping it in and setting an example that way. Unfortunately, that was the wrong.
Have you ever thought this? If you were to pull all of your employees, all Printavo employees, and talk about Printavo kind of when Bruce, you were a lot more active, and Hunter yourself, maybe I could think about this too. If you were to pull all of your employees and say, what do you want for your business owner? What do you want from them? But what do you want for them? What do you think they might say?
I know, because they've like said a couple things. They'd be like, "Wow, I'm so happy you're taking a vacation or whatever. Like, don't worry about this. Why are you still logged into Slack?" I mean, people have literally written that.
So Bruce, what you're saying is your employees are more compassionate towards you than you perceive.
Yes, because I didn't have good, like, Hunter, I think you kind of mentioned this before, but like, I didn't have good patience. I think what it was, which is like, I didn't have enough patience to let things get resolved. So it was like an anxiety thing of like, just, and I didn't have that. And so they definitely wanted that. They're like, no, like it's fine. Like, it'll get resolved. Maybe not today. Like, maybe not tomorrow, but it will by Friday.
So they overwhelmingly wanted you to have time for yourself, to be able to take a break, to not burn out. What in return do you think they wanted?
Payroll on time. No, I mean, I think like, that's a good question. Maybe my guess is the cliche, right? Like allowing them to just do their thing, and not get stepped on. Being able to make, more important decisions, take on more important type of work.
Or what about yourself?
On yours? Yeah.
If you polled your employees, what would they want for you?
I struggle because I think for us, like, they want less roadblocks, but there's not a lot existing. So it's like a weird, not roadblocks, meaning like people in the way, but I think our systems need refining, like as far as like processes, right? Like I'm aware of that.
Okay.
And I think
so they're hungry for that. Like, Hunter, we need more structure.
Yes and no. I think they would say probably similar things to Bruce, right? You know, my life has changed dramatically, like over the last 3 years, having 2 kids and the girl that I'm with, working night shift. It makes it really challenging because I'm with my kids like 3 nights a week, and that comes with challenges. So I find myself, you know, sometimes not getting in until 10, 11 o'clock. You'd probably be better off not coming in at all because, you know, it's kind of like nice, like showing up. Because I don't know, my previous experience, like I had an owner when I was like partnered in this building we're in today, that was never there, you know, and I saw what that did to the team. And it's like, it's a tough problem, right? Like, I mean, you don't want to be the owner that like seemingly doesn't give a fuck or isn't working, but like at the same time, right? Like me working and talking to China until 4 a.m. is not something I'm going to go tell people today, you know? So it's like,
we've got the 2 extremes, like the
I
one
was
dude
China
that's never
last
there,
night.
and then Hunter's like cleaning screens.
Like, it's a weird thing because, you know, you don't want to talk about what you're always doing. And like, I mean, shit, my girlfriend even says the same thing. She's like, you know, what'd you do today? Like, what happened? And like, there could be major things that happen, but I've just found myself becoming more and more numb to the things that we're doing. And, you know, I'm not talking about them as much because I'm so stuck in like doing shit every day, and every day there's new crazy stuff happening. So, but I mean, as far as to answer your question, I think like, yeah, of course they want me to be happy. They want their life to be easier. I think always they want more pay. Yeah, I see. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. It's just my concern is like,
do you feel like still fired up or more on the burnt out side or a combo or?
Definitely on the burnt out side. And I think it's because of what Stephen was saying. Like you went wide, right? Like, so there's so many things that need attention, and it's, half of them they like the staff doesn't even know about, right? They don't even know that like we're dealing with legal on this and this, and like that's been a draining process, you know, getting things done with partnerships on like Shirt Desk, for example. Like I talk very little about these things with the team, although I need to do more of that because I think it is motivating for them, you know, to hear about what I'm doing and to hear about all that stuff. But I've got to like get it together. And like we do, like I told you last time, 4 meetings a month. Right. And it's like one of those meetings is the entire team and we talk about what we're doing, but sometimes it's like so draining. It's hard to like get together an agenda and talk about what those things are and like go into detail. And like, yeah, when you're excited about it, it's a lot easier. But I'm afraid that like the last year and a half has been pretty noticeable that it's been draining. I think a lot of it is coming into that HR side. Like that's really, if you heard some of the shit that we've gone through, it's like, this should be on TV, you know, like it's crazy. And it's like, and I'm sure everybody deals with it, you know, equally, but it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm listening to you and it's the first time anybody's ever really said that to me. Is like, cause I don't, like I said before, I don't have like mentorship. I don't have an older person, like, or somebody with wisdom telling me what to do or advising me or anything. So I've looked for it. But I just haven't been fortunate enough to like find somebody I really, you know, have liked and can support me. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I like it.
I know we're, man, this is deep. Whew. This is some good stuff. I love it. This is real. And Hunter, I appreciate your honesty and being candid because I think there's a lot of shops post-COVID trying to figure it out. I think we were all climbing, maybe living in a little bit of a blur. We had a lot of PPP money. Things were rocking. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of plateau. And so we're looking in the mirror and saying, like, how do we invent ourselves? How do we stay in business? How do we think profitably? What's my exit strategy? What's my work-life balance like? The final closing question I'll ask both of you this is, and Bruce Printavo's already done this, so put yourself back maybe 4 or 5 years ago. would you ever consider hiring a CEO to run your company, but you still stay owner of it?
Yeah.
And
definitely.
what would that be worth to you? Like a dollar amount? Like, I'd pay $180,000 a year if someone could just run this place and they'll tell me what to do. Bruce, would you ever, if you were to go back?
I don't think I could have let go enough to be able to do that. I think that would have been hard. I see what it looks like now, having kind of watched this process, but and now, yeah, no brainer. In fact, probably sooner, right? Because I know that path of going down the burnout path, and I felt it, and I was like, and now I can, and that's why I kind of asked you, because I was like, shit, like I kind of see myself in this exact same thing, and I've seen where this continues to go if it continues down that path. Like the business keeps growing, it needs more, and you just keep giving it everything possible until I just said I can't, like I have to step back. I physically cannot. But yeah, I would have, and I would, and now, if I would do something again, it'd be, I'd hire someone sooner. Because
Hunter, what about yourself?
But that's because I saw it.
Yeah,
because you see what a professional CEO does now.
And it's
Bruce.
hard if you don't. It's hard if you don't.
I think it's a no-brainer. I absolutely
too.
would. It's just how do you just, like, for me, it's. I think we're so close to getting to that point where it could be financially viable. Because like with 3 partners, skin in the game is tough, but I think, yeah, definitely. I just think that finding somebody for like this type of business is kind of, tough, cause it's like, I think it could be done, no doubt. I'd rather go for acquisition, at least like partial acquisition or some sort of merger or acquiring somebody else to bring in like executive level talent. That's what like our next couple things we're working on is something like that. Going after, some talent that way. But I think
it's I think it's really self-aware to be able to know when you've hit your limit.
Yeah.
And be able to admit it, know that it's a truth, ask for help.
And that's where you're a step ahead than I was.
And not try to be the hero.
That. Yeah.
Like I think about Campus Inc. We're going to try and do $20 million this year, and we're on pace. Wow. We're clipping. So we're 100% growth 2 years in a row. We're supposed to try to get to 40 million in 2025. And I'm just like, how, and I told like our CFO Watson this, I was like, I am underqualified to try to take a company from $20 million to $40 million. Like we're going to need some real professionals that understand things that I have never learned about in my life and I am underqualified to do.
Yeah.
And so that's, that's something I'm staring down a little bit. And I think there's this podcast we listened to, Bruce. It was Andrew Wilkinson runs this company called Tiny, and he talked about hiring CEOs. He runs like 40 businesses, Bruce, something like that. Mm-hmm. And he went through the process of hiring them and then checking in with them and what it does for the business, what it does for himself. And he said at the beginning, he goes, the reason I do this is because I'm really lazy.
Yeah.
And I just found that funny. And I'm like, one of the smartest, hardest working human beings that runs this crazy company started by saying, the reason I hire CEOs and focus on hiring them and delegating is because I'm super lazy. And I just thought that was so self-aware and so fascinating. And if more business owners looked at that, maybe they would be a little more liberated and feel like they could actually own something rather than be handcuffed to it. So
I think it's
my hot take.
I think it's a pretty it's pretty telling, like doing this as long as I have, and not even close to as long as some, like the lack of self-awareness in ownership, I think is like a big problem. Like, I think that there's a lot of people that think that they can do it or they're complacent. There's a lot of that too. There's a lot of people that just want to be where they're at, but yeah, it's a definitely interesting thing. Interesting.
Bruce, closing thoughts, Bruce?
I appreciate you. Yeah. Well, I just appreciate your transparency and being able to share. Because every time an episode like this comes out, there's always like 5 messages that comes back, usually texting or emailing or something that's like, hey, dude, really appreciate you having Hunter or whoever on, like that hit home. Steven, someone reached out, was, talking about listening to the episode a couple times, the same one. And so I know the listeners appreciate it. And I think this sort of update, because I believe we chatted like 10 months ago or so, but this sort of update, it's pretty cool. And we're trying to do that a little bit more. Have a good one. Hey, Pronosos, appreciate you guys listening in. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully that was informative. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications if you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy all the stuff we're putting out, it's really helpful. We love to just be able to see it. That means that we're doing a good job. To subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and hit the like button. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.